This is lesson 11, and we are on reviewing all of the intervals, seconds, thirds, fourths, fifths, sixths, and sevenths. And then today we're going to cover octaves and unison, and then harmonic and melodic intervals. So this should be an easier lesson, but it's shorter in the assignments that you have to do. But I do think you're going to have to really focus and go slowly because we aren't doing all of the same intervals. So it's mixed up, so you've got to remember how many letters are in each one and half steps and all of that good stuff. So don't rush through this because I think you're going to have to really pay attention closely in order to make sure you get the right answers. Okay, so at the top of the page, the first section, questions 1 to 10, are review questions. Write the interval size and then the quality of the interval. So the interval size is whether it's a second, a third, a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and then the quality is major, minor, or perfect. Remember, when you are figuring this out, you always have to determine the size first. How do you determine the size? Count the letters. So it really doesn't matter if it has a sharp, a flat, or a natural by it. It's always on the letters, based on the letters. So the first one, D to G. You have to go D, count the first one as 1. Remember, that's important too. D, E, F, G. So that would be a fourth. Now it's going to be some type of fourth. Now, fourths are easy because we only know that they are perfect. They can't be major or minor. So that first one is a perfect fourth. So determine the size first and then the quality. Okay? Octaves. So an interval of 8 letters is an octave, and it's always the same letter, A to A, B to B, C to C. The octaves are also perfect intervals, so they can't be made major or minor. Okay? It's a perfect octave. There are 12 half steps in a perfect octave. But you should be able to figure out octaves without counting the half steps because it's just A to A, not A to A flat or A to A sharp. It's A to A. That's a perfect octave. Okay. So on the at the bottom of the page, I give you a finger. Show me an octave higher. So on that A, show me where an octave higher would be, and then write those 2 pitches on the staff, showing me the octave, okay? So that should be an easy 9, 10, 11, 12 should be pretty easy. Melodic and harmonic intervals. Okay, so everything you've learned so far is still in play. It's still the same information. Melodic intervals are where there's 2 notes and they are 2 separate notes. We do not play them at the same time. Bum, bum, it's a second, okay? Now, if I was to play them at the same time, it's still a second, but now it is a harmonic interval because you play them at the same time. You're creating harmony, okay? When you play them at different times, you're creating melody. So we call these a melodic interval. See that word melody in here? And then these are harmonic interval. Harmonic intervals are going to be on the same stem, okay? Because you play them together, the notes are going to be on the same stem. If they're whole notes, they are directly above each other, okay? The only difference is on that second or a unison. If it's a second, they have to actually, I did that wrong. They have to be touching, okay? So they kind of look like little ears. The lower note always goes to the left and then the upper note, okay? If it was on the staff, looks something like this, okay? And then if it has a stem, the stem goes in the middle. I always think it looks like Mickey Mouse ears. It doesn't really, but for some reason, because they're close together, okay? So that's a second, that's a harmonic interval. All of the other ones, you have space to do them on top of each other. They're stacked up, okay? Now, when we play as string players, we see this and we think double stops, okay? Yes, they are double stops, but that's only what string players call them because we're stopping both strings and we're shortening them on two different strings. So it's a double stopped. Other instrumentalists do not call them double stops, okay? They're creating harmony. So from a theory perspective, we call them harmonic intervals. From a string perspective, being a violinist, violist, and cellist, we call them double stops. Harmonic intervals and double stops are the same thing, okay? They're creating harmony. So you just have to remember, if they're melodic, if they're separate notes, they're harmonic, if they're stacked up on top of each other. The other thing I was going to tell you is on harmonic. So think about it. I skipped something too. Whoa, sorry. I skipped the unison. So sorry. So, unison is when it's the exact same pitch on the same line or space. So A to A, G to G. Another way that we get to do this a little bit differently than any other instrument is we can actually play this two different ways, right? This pitch. We could play this with an open string, or we could play it with a fourth finger, okay? So it's still a unison even if we play it from open D to fourth finger D on the G string. It's still unison, it's the same pitch, okay? And unisons are also perfect, and so this is a P1, okay? Because it's a perfect unison. Now, a harmonic, this is what reminded me, a harmonic interval that's a perfect unison is when the notes are touching, and often we will see this in our music with a fourth finger and an open. So you're playing them at the same time, but they're sounding the same. So that is a harmonic unison, okay? Pianists can't do that, okay? Because they hit the one note and that's what it is. But we could play fourth finger D and open D as a double stop harmonically, really, because it's two different tone qualities, okay? So that's kind of a unique thing to string players, which is kind of cool. Okay, so the next section, this is the part that you really have to take everything we've learned and apply it. And that is in number 15, I say a major second, I give you the first note. I want it to be a melodic interval going up. So there's the first note. It's melodic, so it needs to be two separate notes. Second, okay, so think about, is it melodic and harmonic? Do I put them on the same stem or stacked up, or are they separate? Okay, so these are melodic, separate stems. The next thing you need to do is the size. So it's a second. Figure out what the next note is. Then half steps, count half steps. A major second. So what's a major second above C? Figure out the second first, then make it major or minor. Always adjust the second note. Don't adjust the first note. Add a sharp, flat, or natural to the second note in order to make it the quality, major, minor, or perfect, okay? On your perfect intervals, be sure you do count those half steps, because even though they're perfect, you still need to make sure that the half steps are there, because just because it's F to B doesn't make it a perfect fourth. That's one half step too high. F to B flat is a perfect fourth. So watch those perfect ones. You still have to count the half steps. That's important on those, okay? Then on the next section, it's harmonic intervals. So that's telling you, ding, stack them on top of each other. They have to sound at the same time. Double stops for strings. And then think, okay, second, what's a second? Figure out the letter first, then the quality, adjust the second pitch, not the printed pitch on the page. Okay? I think that should be it for this week. trying to think if there's anything else I need to tell you, and I don't think there is. So have a great Thanksgiving. No class next week. I won't post anything, but I'll see you the following week after that. Eat lots of turkey and stuffing and have a piece of pumpkin pie for me. We'll see you in 2 weeks.